Challenge your potential and the sky's the limit. Join me, Emily Ibbott, in a diary to empower. From a starting point of a love for dance, my life has evolved, but along the way, I've learned so much in how we develop, learn and grow from those around us to elevate us even further on. Be inspired and be open to learn, and no limit will ever exist. Come along with me on my own journey in personal development, but with guests who have empowered me and are still doing so in my own journey. Hello and welcome back. So I have my next guest with me. This is Dawn.
Hi.
Hey. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for inviting me.
So obviously previous episodes that I've spoken about, we've had some release with John, and I've spoken a lot about my own bodybuilding journey. So I am here to speak a little bit about just the bodybuilding and stage and shoot preps in comparison to lifestyle. Now, Dawn and I did a shoot, oh my goodness, when was it? Like 3 years ago?
I think it was 3 years ago.
Oh my gosh, scary. So obviously we did a shoot together and you did one previous to that.
Yeah, so the year before I did one.
So you're used to you've gone through it all, I guess, like kind of those mishmash of sort of having a bit of a stricter regime to just embracing life as well.
Yeah.
So we're just kind of speaking about the different extremes of it and also the similarities, but also how different it is in managing it. Because I think people who are lifestyle and don't want to go into those extremes think that they have to, but actually it's not always necessary to do all those things.
I think the word says it itself. In lifestyle, it's a style of life, and I think it's trying to build those habits to be consistent for a longer period of time. Not to say that bodybuilding isn't consistent, but it's trying to build habits that every day you can incorporate into your life. And I think that was where I kind of needed help.
Yeah, I think it's hard in knowing, when you go into, I remember when I first said to Court about doing the shoot, I was like, I have no idea what's going to happen because I've never done anything like this in my life. And I think it's difficult, and you learn a little bit more about macros and tracking and all of those habits, which actually when you come out with it, you can still carry on with. But obviously, I mean, we did 12 week stint or a 10-week shoot prep. But I think that so much of it you can carry out, but equally you just don't need to be in that same, it's a very different mindset, but it's hard to switch off from it. Yeah. Because obviously you want the habits and consistency to still be there. Yeah. So how did you find going into, how did you find your shoot prep?
The first one, I literally, with Courtney went in there and I didn't know where to even start.
Had you tracked before?
No. So I had come back, always been an athlete, but I had come back from a severe broken leg and kind of just didn't know where to go as in training wise, but also nutrition wise.
Yeah. I think that's the tough part. I think you can be pretty consistent with training and be really passionate and train really hard, but I think adding into that nutrition side of things, it changes the game entirely.
100%. And I will never forget Courtney. I think one of the very first things he said to me, and it's stuck with me, and it was an example of, say for instance, this is your phone, and then the water bottle being bigger than your phone, and he said to me, this is 1,000 calories and this is 1,000 calories, but what is going to sustainably make you feel better and fill you, and that has literally stuck with me to the point where I'm like, wow, how am I fueling my body and how can I get the best out of food in order to up my training?
And you feel like I find that when I was obviously tracking, not so much in terms of bodybuilding, but when I was tracking, I was like, right, how can I cheat the system?
Yeah.
How much can I? And I'd make myself a dessert, and it would be using Halo Top or using Crush My Ranks. I mean, we have the best of recipes. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm good. You have the crumble over there, but I've just got this, and it's a mound of substance.
It's mass over, the tiniest thing that would be more calorific. And it's just learning those fine details.
Yes.
I can have a balance and I can have society classifies the naughty stuff.
Yeah.
But within a well-balanced
Yeah.
diet. And I think that I learned so much about that with the whole nutrition side of being a lifestyle.
Yeah. It's interesting because obviously, like, you can do so much and you can still fit in, but it's also about keeping the staples there as well, like all the things that you need to keep in rather than just swapping everything out and being too savvy. But it is the balance, and you can still work towards those like shoot preps with everything that you want to enjoy as well.
And that's the thing with lifestyle, and I think with bodybuilding too, it's a case of, you know, finding something that works that you can sustain for a very long time.
Yeah.
But with being human, you know, you like to have the treats and the balance and the going out and doing whatever, but being able to tick those other boxes in your day of, you know, whether it's getting steps or doing a quick workout or, you know, having more color on your plate. And that's also where I learned so much with being a lifestyle client is, you know, finding all of those balances, but being human and having a life too.
Yes, 100%. And then going into, if you were sort of, even though it was a lifestyle, like shoot prep, it was obviously, there was a goal and there was a purpose at the end of it. So how did you find that shifted to just manage that balance a little bit more and just being a bit more mindful to push for the goal you wanted to? Because I always say to people, you know, you can push for that goal, but we got to work. You know, there's got to be some things that we necessarily don't sort of do. Not, I don't like saying that, but, you know, just be mindful of those things that you're doing in comparison to having more balance. How did you find switching that? Did you switch much of it during your shoot, or were you still, because you can fit things in, but I think that obviously when you know, especially towards the end, like, it takes its toll.
Yeah, I think in the beginning I spent a good probably 3 months with Court just figuring out like the whole nutrition side and tracking and, you know, what worked training wise and getting the feel for it before we decided, right,
we're going,
you know, and Court was like, what is your goal? And I think that's so important to ask people, because everyone's goal is completely different.
100%.
I mean,
and it's not always aesthetics either at all.
100%. Like it doesn't have to be, the outcome have to be how you look. It can be how you feel. And in the beginning stages, it was, I want to do, you know, I want better sleep. And for anyone that knows, I love my sleep now because I get me 8 hours. And
without fail.
And then once I got into the hang of it, you know, Court was like, you know, what is your goal? And I was like, I don't really know. And he's like, how about a shoot? And at first I was like, no, don't have the confidence for it, not a chance, whatever. And he's like, well, let's try, let's push. And then when I had that person have the faith and the confidence that I could achieve that, it switched.
It changes, doesn't it?
And I went, oh, maybe I can do this.
And it's, I think as well, when you have that, like when you start booking it and you know that like when it's going to happen, you're like, okay, right, tunnel vision, like let's go. And I mean, it's the same, I found the same when with bodybuilding, but obviously without those shoots, I wouldn't have known that actually I was capable of it, because it just takes that someone else to be like, no, you can do it. Look at what you're achieving. And obviously you do have to, I find that you do have to like strip things back slightly, because obviously there's a goal and there's a purpose, but equally if there is, like in lifestyle, there is more of a balance that you can fit more things in. And obviously with bodybuilding, during prep, it is a case of being like, I'm in prep, this is my goal, I'm doing this to a T, and that's it. And I think it got like, 100%. And I think it was similar into the shoot, especially towards the end. And, you know, there are so many similarities that you've got to be on it with in order to achieve what you set out to, I think is the main thing to come back to.
But that, with being a lifestyle client, and obviously you do your online coaching, and it's just having, I think you covered it with Lewis last week, it's just having that person that you can go to and be like, you know, I feel like this today. And them turning around and go, you're doing perfectly fine, because you're always harder on yourself. And it's like, well, moving forward, how can we better it for tomorrow? And it's just having that person you can lean on and having the accountability.
And I think being the client, you don't know. Like, you don't know whether what you're feeling is like right or normal, but obviously being so hard on yourself, you don't know what bettering yourself looks like, but they will obviously have that vision and understand how to get you to that place. So I think it is really using your coach. And then it's just like you can learn so much from it. Like what I learned from the shoots is immense. Like even from you guys, like when we were tracking, I was like, I don't know how to do this, and you were like, scan everything. And now I tell that to my clients, because you get to know how to read like labels and actually what's in food and the content. And
I don't think anyone reads a label when they go shopping. No one turns that over.
No, and I find it really funny speaking about this, because you know, like they have the little strip on the front of the packs, which can be useful, but I was like, where's the protein one? Can you have one of those? And I think people, especially the protein labeled things, there are so many things that actually, like,
I mean, if it's classified as protein, if there's more than 5 grams of protein, then it's like,
but then equally, if you flip it over and the fat content's higher than the protein, you're thinking, okay, actually, maybe I shouldn't have this, or you know, maybe I could find a better option more than anything else. And I think that really carries into coming into the lifestyle side of things. I mean, again, the same thing as in bodybuilding, but some obviously bodybuilders have meal plans. I had a meal plan and I loved it, and it changed the game entirely in comparison to macros. I think just because it gave me no like fatigue of thinking, like I could just crack on with it. I knew exactly what I was doing, and the guesswork was out of it, because there was no guesswork, because he just did that all, and I didn't know my calories, and I've not known my calories since the shoot with Court, which has been weird. And everyone's like, what do you want? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. That's my coach's job.
Mentally, that is probably so good for someone as a bodybuilder going into prep. You don't need those numbers, because I can tell you right now, sometimes those numbers get in your head, and they start messing around.
And I found that with the shoot preps, I found that knowing what I was on, I already talked myself into, if it was a low day, that I would be fatigued. And I was like,
it's crazy how your brain works.
I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be tired today because it's a low day.
Like, no, I haven't even got to tomorrow to the low day, and I'm already saying I'm tired.
Which I found really interesting. Then obviously with meal plan, not knowing those macros, and you know, not everyone does offer a meal plan, and obviously having a coach as a nutritionist as well, obviously there are different sort of levels in that sort of thing with the service that you're getting, but it can really change the game with not knowing, because you also then lose the relationship that you have a little bit with the scales, the devil's word, and they're not everything, and stuff them, and you know, that's not. It made me like just separate that, and I was like, this is just all data, you know. And the same with tracking, it's just data to know how we're managing our nutrition with everything else.
But that's the thing, like I think everyone is so hell-bent on that step on the ground, that scale, that number, and it's like, well, stop for a minute, and how do you actually truly feel? Like, do you have more energy? Are you sleeping better? You know, are you progressing in the gym? Are you full? Are you craving? Like, those are the important things.
And the fluctuations that can happen is, oh my God, the list is endless.
Especially for females. It's this every week. I mean, and you only have to have a lack of sleep for your body to hold more water. And you go step on a scale, and it's just like, that's it, it's ruined, I might as well just mess up. You know?
And you think, and I know we're all human, we've all been there. And I know I did towards the back end of prep, especially when it got closer to the show. But obviously that was because my head was in the mindset of the show. I was like, I know exactly kind of ish what should be happening. I know I shouldn't be worrying, but you know, we all have those wobbles, but actually it's then coming away from it and going, there's nothing I can do about that. You know, what are the variables that I can control rather than not?
And that's one thing that I've learned now, is when I wake up, I am on today. Everything in my life is one day at a time, and I'm on today. What happened yesterday is no use to me. I can't control that anymore. It's gone. And what happens tomorrow, I still can't control, because I'm not there yet, and I'm not there next week. I'm here, so what can I do now, and what can I still put in place now on this day?
And also, what can be, like, if I didn't feel 100% of what I did yesterday, I can learn from it, but what can I do about that today? And I always say that to my clients, you know, when they're worrying about God knows what, or what's previous happened yesterday, or they felt like this, or I'm like, okay, really, like, I do care, and I will take it on board. However, I don't care. I care what you do now from this moment, because, you know, there's sweet FA that we can do about that. And I think exactly that. And it's like, you know, do what you can at each point, rather than sort of thinking down, because then you're just your mood automatically drops. Like, stress levels could increase and all of those things as well. And you don't want to stress about that. Okay. There's no point in stressing unless you can do something about it.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
No.
Because one bad day that you're having is not going to ruin any of the progress that you've done in that 7-day period. And that's another thing that I learned. I take a 7-day period.
Yeah.
And within those 7 days, I'm bound to have 2 crappy days.
Yeah. 100%.
But I've got 5 other good days.
Yeah.
So
and it's when I think it's really tough if someone changes it to like a bad week. And if you do that a few times out of the whole year, okay, you're adding things up. Whereas one day out of 365 is like,
exactly. And I think people also get in their own heads when they have a bad day. So therefore they have a right to have a bad week.
Yes.
And it's like, well, no, like you had a bad day. Okay.
Yeah. Just use your routine.
Valid. How you feel is 100% valid. Yeah. I hear you, but tomorrow's a new day. So how are you making that better?
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's turning around and reflecting on that. And actually sometimes just writing out like, okay, what did I actually learn from that day? Because, I need to change that and I know I need to change that. Okay. So what are we going to do about it? Yeah. Hugely. Going back to sort of into the shoot stuff, how did you feel coming out of it? Because I feel that so many people have diet phases and it's really, no one knows how to come out of them.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we look amazing, we feel amazing, we've gone to this event, then what? And people are like, whoa, and it's really overwhelming. I had 2 very different experiences from the first to the second shoot, let alone my third shoot and then stage. It was all very different. And obviously into the stage, obviously I was even leaner. So obviously the thoughts and things, and obviously it was an even prolonged period of time, it was a very long time, made me think so differently about it as well. But how did you find that transition period?
The first shoot I did, I think after the shoot I was like, yep, eat everything in sight. But that only lasted, I'd probably say a week and a half, and I was dying for routine again.
Yeah.
So I threw myself back into routine. But I'd already mentally said to myself, your leanest is not sustainable.
Yes.
So get to grips with that. It's not going to stay like that.
No. And it doesn't, like, everything's temporary.
Yeah.
Like, even from when you're feeling a bit uncomfortable or a little bit, what I would say, fluffy, that's temporary too. You can change that. Yeah. Being lean is temporary. We're human, and those fluctuations can also happen. And also finding that maintenance sweet spot's really difficult.
Yeah, I think I went through a stage after my first shoot where every morning I woke up, the first thing I do is lift my t-shirt up and see if my abs are still there.
I still do that every time. 11 weeks and we're still going strong. I said to my friend the other day, I said, the day I don't check myself, it was going to be a great day. And I said, it doesn't matter. But, and I think we just get used to that, don't you? Because you're like, oh my God.
Because that's our highest, like that's our zenith. It's our highest moment. We look the best that we have ever been in that period of time. So when we start introducing back into, normality or not being so strict, it's like, oh, my abs aren't as defined.
And we associate we associate it with that being negative, but that's not negative at all. And I think, because we're so used to, like you say, being so high, so positive, so like
full of confidence,
unreal. And then you're like, everything's going to go. Whereas actually it's not the case.
Well, it's not
at all.
And we've just covered it now. Like one bad day is nothing in comparison with like the 365 days. Yeah. So like coming off of a shoot, indulging or whatever the case is, it's basically getting back into that routine again. And my first shoot was very different to the one I did when I did that one with you. I know you had a total opposite experience afterwards to what I did. I had learnt from my first one, and straight away I was like, these are the things that I know I need to put in place going forward. From what I'd learned in the first shoots. And that's what I did, and I felt a lot more relaxed. And I just kept reminding myself, like, food isn't going anywhere.
Do you know what? That has stayed with me. Yeah, that has stayed with me. I can't remember whether it was another podcast I listened to, and I think that is the biggest piece of advice, and the biggest piece of advice I give to my team as well. We all have our struggles in terms of when we come out of a diet phase. I'm a massive foodie. Like I was talking to my coach last week, and he was saying that that's not his thing, going out for food, and I was like, it's for me. And it's really hard, like, just figuring that out. I mean, my first shoot, like, I've spoken about it before on the pod, but I didn't know what was coming. I didn't know what to expect. So yeah, I had some nice things. Like I had a pretty good routine. And then obviously it was like just out of COVID. So then work was really busy and I was sort of moving and doing quite a lot. Then the second one, oh my God, I hoarded. And now looking back at that, I'm like, why did I do that? Why? And obviously we all like our sweet treats, and I had some nice things after the show, but I didn't hoard. I was like, no.
Yeah.
Do not do that. I mean, me and Dawn went to we went to B&M and we brought everything, like every type of bar of chocolate, and we had like massive boxes filled.
Stuck in the cupboard.
That's where it's all
after the shoot.
Yeah. And it's weird because then when you have that indulgence, like I remember when we all went to Gaucho and we had so much, oh my God, it was amazing. I was in like such a food coma afterwards. Yeah. I was like, why did
And then we still were planning on going for a meal that night. And it's like, oh my God, I'm still full from this night.
Yeah. And I think it's really hard to understand that, you know, you can have sort of that having that breathing time, that bit of indulgence afterwards is fantastic. But then it's like, okay, keep to the routine that's like there, even if things are slightly different, even if you're taking it easier in training. Like I remember, 365 days a year, like my water doesn't change, my steps are still consistent, obviously to whatever the goal that I'm working on. Like sleep, still focused, all of those things stay all the time. And same as training. And then as soon as you get back into that, you find that your body just responds nicely, like everything like comes down, like water sort of goes, sort of water retention. And it's then like, you then I think need to think about how the goalpost shifts. Yeah. Because a lot of people just stay in that like limbo thinking, okay, I'm just going to kind of plod along. But then it's understanding that, okay, you can bring your food up because we don't want to sit in a deficit anymore.
Come back to maintenance and crack on.
And that routine around that makes such a difference. But I think people forget to realign the goal. Yeah. And it's like understanding that.
Well, coming out of whatever it is, whether you do 12 weeks with an online coach or whatever the goal is, I think people after that period of time, they go, well, now what?
Yeah,
and they sit there whatever. Now that they feel like they have no purpose. Yeah, and that's why I think with being a lifestyle client, you build all these habits to carry it on. Yeah, and like you say, like what is the goal? Where are the goalposts now? And it's ensuring yourself that you have something to look forward to after the whatever stint you are doing. Yes, because you kind of feel like, well, what now? And that's when a lot of people fall off. Yeah, the wagon beater.
I had that after our shoot because I went for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I was going out all the time, and I was training, but my water retention just went, and I put on a lot of unwanted and unnecessary weight a bit too quickly, obviously. And it's about understanding, that weight gain. It's expected. We've been at our leanest, and you want that like slow and steady, so your body like adjusts to the period of time after that phase. And I think a lot of people miss that. And yes, we expect the initial increase after just eating all the good stuff, but it's like understanding how we can just inch things slowly bring things up, and understanding how our body's responding at each point. Because I think if we just shovel loads of things that our body's not been used to for ages, it's like,
I know from my first shoot, after just like inhaling everything in sight, my digestion was not happy. I mean, I was lying awake for like 3-4 hours at nighttime because like my body was just going, whoa, what the heck? What have you put inside of me, and how do I deal with this now?
Yes, exactly that. And I think, and then getting back in like keeping veggies in, all of those things that you would normally, I think we just automatically stop those things because we're like, I don't need to now. Yeah, but actually, well, okay, we do need to. It's just the goals,
and that's the thing. Like shifting. The goals change. So after that period of time that you're doing it, it's like, well, what is the next step? And I think it's so important that coaches start incorporating that. It's like, this is the goal, but going forward, can you follow this routine, or can you follow these good habits that you've created going forward?
I think that was why when I did my shoot with my team last year, I did a 16-week transformation, a 12-week towards the shoot, and then I helped them and guided them out of it, depending on what their goal was. Yeah. And just to understand that a little bit more. Yeah. And obviously it doesn't necessarily have to be as extreme. Obviously, if we're talking about, if someone says a reverse, we're focusing on how we come out of these diet phases, because, I think so many people difficult, and it's goes into that yo-yo. We don't want that yo-yo like feeling. So many people say, oh, I did this, I managed this, I lost that, and then I just, then it all went back on. And I hear that so many times a day, and it's really, like, hard to hear that, because people feel like, oh, we've got to go again. Like, when you don't have to, it doesn't have to be extreme. Obviously, again, if you're flipping the switch to bodybuilding, it is to the extremes. It's not the normal. It is an extreme sport, especially like with the bulking side of things, just as much as the cutting side of things and the prep. It's not normal. Most people don't eat 7 meals a day full of carbs and training and everything else, and then obviously still have 7 meals a day, but when you're prepping, it's on a completely different spectrum, and you don't normally go to the higher levels of body fat to the extreme lows of body fat. So it's really difficult. So then when we talk about reversing bodybuilding, you have to pay a little bit more attention, and obviously have even more like communication with your coach, and post-show is a whole nother podcast that I will be doing, because it's one to talk about, and I think not enough people do. But I think in the same breath, I think not enough people talk about it in lifestyle.
No, because it's a mental game. It's honestly, it's a mental game, because you like you're saying, you're coming out as your leanest, highest, most confident self, and it's like, how do you bring yourself back to normality
and still keeping that confidence as well? I find that it does drop a little bit. We all love seeing the ab lines, and seeing ourselves in that light, and it's like, it's loving yourself in every part of the process as well. And I think that can be really difficult for some people, because they feel like they can only love themselves when they look a certain way.
But that's the thing, is like, you focused on aesthetics and look at the bigger picture. It's not just how you look, but it's how you feel, the habits you put in place, like how your body, a lot of people just need to move more in order to feel better. I'm sure you've worked with a lot of people who, have never set foot into a gym and don't even know one bit of equipment. And it's like, that is a huge result right there. Like, you don't have to look a certain way to have results.
My God, no.
It doesn't have to be about how your body looks.
No, not at all.
Like, we should be doing this because, when we're 80 years old, we want to still be doing the good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think not enough people realise that their goals can be revolved around those things as well. And it's I think we want that. I think equally to say the confidence can come from in all sorts of different ways. The confidence can come from like walking into the gym and being like, oh, I don't normally do this, go me. Equally, like, we can want that little boost of confidence to feel a little bit like tidier or whatever as well. I think, they can both, I think people accept, and I spoke about this with John on the pod, I think people are like, oh my God, it's not always about how you look in so many ways, but equally, if you feel more confident in a certain way, like in how you look, because when you're confident in yourself, it beams onto everything else.
And I mean, just even in workouts, not even nutrition side, in workouts, like, you're going in and you're PBing on your squat. That's an achievement on its own.
Hugely.
It's just, I think we all want to look a specific way. And that's what
we always want to look like somebody else. They're not you. Like, we're not gonna, and we have this envision, and I have a very good friend of mine, and she was like, oh, my abs don't look a certain way, and we all hold in different places, right? But her legs are like absolutely like so lean, and it's like, oh, amazing. Like, learn to love yourself, because actually, like, where someone else holds body fat might not be where you hold it, and that's cool. Which is why when you compare to someone else, I want to look like that. Well, actually, that might not actually physically be possible, and it probably isn't, because you're never going to look like the same as someone else, because you've got different. Your whole
body proportion is completely different. Your genetics are different, so you're never going to look exactly like that. But appreciate how your body actually looks and what it does for you.
Yes,
like,
hugely.
I think we tend to forget everything our body does for us on a 24-hour period. We don't, 8 hours of sleeping, we don't realize our body is keeping us alive. Like, appreciate what it does, and we always want to better, and just
and you can improve in so many different ways to better yourself.
Even with the small things.
Hugely. Even if, like, and I find during these phases you learn so much about that. Like, you learn that, like you say, like, food's always going to be there, so automatically coming out of it, oh no, that's cool. And I don't need to touch that, or, you know, oh, cool, I'll have that. Like when, you know, I've got a little bit more like further down the line. And even those little things and improvements in your mindset can set you in such good stead because you understand so much about food and training and massively.
I think everyone is pretty much out for the quick fixes. Everyone wants instant results straight away, and I think if you
that's boring.
Or the name brands that we will not speak of, all the quick fixes. But I think people need to just invest a little bit more time into themselves.
And I find that's the fascinating part. I don't know how you feel now in comparison to when you did your first shoot, but how you feel in yourself and how much you've learned and all that time. And then it's like, okay, well, now I'm doing even better in this and that. And that's mega.
Yeah. I mean, I bumped into Shax yesterday in the gym, and he was like, oh, you know, I'm sure... I remember it must be close to like the time that you broke your leg. And yesterday I got the reminder like 5 years ago.
That's crazy.
And he's like, I was just seeing you like do Bulgarian split squats, and no one would ever say that that's what you did. And sometimes you forget, how far you've come. Yeah, because you're so fixated on the silly mundane thing.
Yes,
like, oh my god, I can't see my abs, or oh my god, this, that, or the next thing. And it's like you forget how far you've actually come.
Yeah,
and that's the important thing. It's like I said, you know, just going to the gym or just going on any equipment, that's an achievement in itself. Just going for an hour walk every day, or just doing 5,000 steps when you only got 500. You know, it's small goals. People need to focus on the small goals, because and those small goals make up a big goal.
Yeah, hugely. And I remember seeing like a photo that I took in the gym last year, and me thinking I'm like the big guy I am, whatever. And then I took another one, obviously a progress photo, and I was like, whoa, my shoulders are so different. But you don't realise it at the time. And because obviously, photos. Because at the time you feel your best then. So it's like, oh, actually, go me, maybe I have done something. Yeah. And then it's, what I love then is I'm now thinking, oh my God, what the heck am I going to look like in 2025 when I actually get on stage again? Yeah. Like, I find that that's really powerful. It's the long game, like, you know, and that's why we love it. But also it's really frustrating at the same time, because you're like, oh, we just keep doing and we keep going. Yeah.
But that's why I say I live my life one day at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the best way to do it, and carrying on from sort of learning from those little stints. And I think working with a coach and having those periods where you can just push, tunnel focus, just see what you can do. Yeah. Because I didn't know what was on the other side, and I never actually said I was going to bodybuild, but here we are. And
I remember after our shoot, and we went to Gaucho with Court, and we were both in the car. And me and Court said to you, like, we really think you should start doing this bodybuilding stuff. And you were like, really? Nah, really? And we're like, Court, like, I was like, she needs to get into this bodybuilding thing.
Yeah, and I think as well, it was that shoot which changed the game, because I was even leaner than my first one. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a testament to my mind. I can do it. Yeah. That is the biggest thing, because I always say to people, and it goes within, you know, the comparisons that we're sort of looking at today, is if you're not that bothered about getting on stage, don't. Yeah. Like, it's not worth it. I always say to people, get in front of a camera first. Try a shoot. There's so many different styles of shoots that you can do. But it's really seeing what you're capable of, because I think the gimmick, or I don't like saying gimmick, but a lot of people jump into like stage preps and like, oh yeah,
and then it gets a little trend.
Yeah. And like, would you ever get on the stage?
Me? You know what? I have nothing against bodybuilding or anything like that. I commend all you guys doing all of that, but that's just not my vision. Yeah.
And I think I think people forget that you can still work to like amazing goals, feel your leanness, work towards a shoot. Even if you don't work towards a shoot, you can still reach to a point. And also, like, I think there's so much people are like, oh, just do it. You don't have to do it. Like, you know, you don't have to, you've got to love it. And I find that a lot, because you don't want to lose love of the training. And that's the thing,
it's finding that balance. It's like, I could do it. I could 100% go, because anyone can do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in the back of my head going, well, you already know that's probably not something that you want to do.
Yeah.
So why force yourself to do it? Because then you've already got the mindset of, I don't really want to do this. And you could actually lose that relationship, that love of training.
Love of food.
Of everything. You could lose all of that. So why even risk it?
Yeah, hugely. And you know, that goes to say you don't even need to work towards any extremes.
No.
Like you can, like as I say, just feel good for moving, for just eating well, learning better habits. And that's cool too. Which is, you know, where the lifestyle part of it comes in. Now, how would you say you feel now? Because you haven't done a shoot for a couple of years. So I always, you know, Dawn is insane, has got balance down to a T, I would say. And like, do you still sometimes track? Like, how do you feel where you're at now in like I don't know, let's say the past like 6 months?
So sometimes I track, sometimes I don't. It's all dependent on how I feel. Sometimes I just need like a little bit of knowledge. You know, if I'm coming off of holiday and I've gone like splurged or whatever, I just need routine. And I find sometimes just going back into that tracking phase of, right, these are going to be my meals for the week. Just trying to find some sort of routine. But within that week, I'm still going out on the weekends or, you know, I'm still finding that balance in life.
Yes. How do you feel in terms of your composition? Now, when we talk about composition, obviously I'm speaking just in how we feel and look and how that's changed. Because obviously, I think people forget that the more the phases that you go through, the better, obviously, your composition holds. So, you know, and I always, like, John always looks stage lean pretty much all year round, but he's gone through so many different diet phases and push phases. Now, these aren't short, then sometimes they're shorter than others, but going through, your body's responding in both different ways. So I find, and you know, your composition feels better and you hold that. How do you feel with that?
Yeah, and this is why I love pictures. And you know, when we take pictures or videos or anything, it's not in a vain way whatsoever. No, it's just progression and form and that kind of stuff. And I was actually looking at photos a couple of weeks ago of this time last year, just to see. My hair was different, of course. It's always different. But just to see where I was at. And I look completely different last November than what I do now. But in good ways. So again, it's a reminder going, well, I'm obviously doing something right.
And forgetting that, you know, if you're training hard, you can push, like, that growth will be happening. You know, it chips away. It doesn't happen very quickly. If it did, I'd be wham. But, you know, but that's the beauty of it, because you just keep doing what you're doing, keep that routine, and it just improves.
When you love it, it's just becomes second nature. But yeah, I track sometimes. At the moment, I have been tracking, but just trying to get back into routine after coming back from holiday. This time of the year, I know completely this time of the year is a write-off because, you know, Christmas. Every day is Christmas in my household.
Yes.
Every day is Christmas in my household.
And I think people struggle this time of year because they're already anxious about being, like, around it. And it doesn't have to be at all. And it's knowing, you know, keeping that routine in place, just keeping everything you're doing, training, moving, walking, and just go and enjoy those things. You know, again, it's temporary.
Once a year.
If something, you know, if we end up putting a bit of unwanted or, you know, just feeling a bit by January or even heading into December, you know, that's cool, that's temporary. It's not going to be permanent.
And that's the thing, I think
people
you can
go into tracking,
get in their heads and they're like, oh, you know, if I put on weight over this time of year, like, I don't want to do that. And it's like, well, just as easy as it came on, just as easy to come off. But I would rather take the memories and the food and all that over worrying that I'm putting on weight, because
that my abs are going to disappear.
I know at the end of the day it will be easy enough to get it off again. But I'm not going to compromise the memories, and I'm not going to compromise this time of the year, because I mean, the food is just phenomenal.
Our entire weekend coming up is revolved around food. And it's and that's what's awesome about having that lifestyle side of things. And even with bodybuilding, yes, the prep is serious. It's to a T. You know, you want to be the best possible you that you can possibly be on stage, and you don't sort of, I don't know, say risk anything for that. You stick to that. However, I think people forget that in bodybuilding you can have fun too. Like,
of course.
Yes, on prep, like, it's, you know, you have to be pretty much to a T. However, like, you can have that balance. And I remember coming into my off season last year, And I did loads of different things, and I did the same this year. I'm booked up till Christmas now. And it's having those events, and the routine doesn't change, you know. And I've got my birthday coming up, and I said to my coach, I said, you know, I'm taking it as a holiday. I'm taking the week off work. You know, I want to enjoy it, but equally, I'm not planning to train. But I really want to eat some more food. and it's, you know, having those conversations. And there are still some guidelines that your coach or someone else can give you advice on keeping in place, so that the goalpost, you know, doesn't shift too much, and you can still feel in control. And I think that's the main thing to talk about. It's feeling in control, even if you're in a diet phase and wanting to do things and go and socialize. Those things can happen, and it's okay, what do we put around that event to keep in place to then just feel a little bit more in control? You know, do I need to just sort of bring things down on something else of what I'm eating? Do I just need to focus on protein up until that event? Yeah. And it's finding that, and obviously that's the part of balance that, you know, maybe isn't in bodybuilding so much during prep. You know, there isn't much room to sort of go out and do things, but you can obviously do those things in off season, and there's time. There's time. And, you know, so many people have said to me, "Oh, you getting on stage next year?" No, I want to, you know, I need to take time to grow, because it takes ages, and just enjoy a bit of life as well, because I've spent the past 4 summers dieting. I've not had one summer. I finished, obviously my shoot last year was in June, so I had quite a bit of summer, but yeah, it's going to be weird next year. And, you know, and having those mini cuts when you want to like tidy things up as well, and just feel a bit more confident. Which, and it's weird comparing the two, but coming out of it, and obviously I'm sort of in it for the long run now. But
so, question for you then: now going in to
can't do this to me.
Going into now a gaining phase,
yes,
and only competing 2025.
Yeah.
How are you feeling with that, and what have you had to put in place to be like, right, this is the best decision?
Yeah, I find that it's spinning it around on me. That's right. I find that post-show is a time. I didn't go through any major extremes post-show, but my body took a long time to adjust.
Okay.
So we're like, 11 weeks post-show this week, and it's only in the past 4 that my body's been like, cool. Yeah. We're a bit more happier now. Yeah. And I think weight was constantly fluctuating and weight was constantly increasing, but a little bit sometimes too much for what we wanted. So it was trying to keep the routine in place still. And sometimes it takes time. Like, you can't just, it's different for everyone, and every post-show or post-shoot is so different. So it's adjusting, but I knew the weight gain for me wasn't the problem, but knowing that I was gaining too quick was a problem in my head, because I was like, well, I know this isn't supposed to be the rate of gain. We want to just be steadier. And I think that was the biggest learning curve. And one of the other biggest things which I found was the hunger. I wasn't hungry the entirety of prep. You know, I craved, but I find craving and hunger, obviously, they're completely different things.
And that's learning something, even in lifestyle. Like, yes. I think the general population need to know the difference between craving and hungry. Like, do you need it, or do you want that?
Yes.
Like, does your body need it?
Because I think people are like, oh, I'm hungry, so I'm going to eat it. You know, let's analyse that a little bit. And also, sometimes I'm the abnormal because I didn't experience hunger during prep. But I think, you know, a little bit of hunger, that's normal. Like, cool, okay, bite the bullet. Move on a little bit. Obviously, if it's constant, then you have to look at that and analyse that in a slightly different way. But the hunger was mad. So I had some freedom, I had some treats, had some lovely meals, stopped when I was full, all of those things. And I think post-show, it's about not being an absolute, you know, we can all know the word that I'm about to say. And with your meals, and if you're full, stop, because that button doesn't exist for a long time. My full button has only just about come into play, and that's been hard because nothing would satisfy me. And, you know, we want to be satisfied by food. And when we're not, is a problem, because I'd finish a meal and I'd be like, any more? Like, but I couldn't. So, and that's where the cravings then came in of wanting the more indulgent things, which maybe what I would call the here and there treats, I had to tone down. They were there for a good few weeks after prep, and I wasn't mad, didn't binge, anything like that. And obviously post-show is something I'll talk about further into. But it's, yeah, that was tough. And I had to then, a few weeks ago, stop the here and there treats entirely. That was hard because I was like, we need to control what's happening, and body and hormones, and my skin was flaring up and all sorts of things. And I'd never experienced that before. Like post-show, like I knew I didn't even go crazy with food, but my whole back like flared up, and it's adjusting. But I knew the weight gain was welcomed. Sometimes, you know, filling out into some leggings and jeans was actually a bit nicer because I didn't realize how tiny I was. Yeah. And it's I think that's a bit tougher. So yeah, it's just getting used to now pushing into gaining and knowing that what I'm doing in training is optimal. Yeah. So everything I do is obviously for training. I need my training to be like good, because that's where the growth happens. So it's just getting into that really, and just enjoying a little bit of life in the meantime. But yeah, and it's working just little bit by little bit by little bit to push. And obviously, off-season update will be incoming. But it's weird because I won't have pushed for this long for a long time. So
it's exciting, though.
Yeah, it is exciting. And, you know, like you say, composition will be entirely different when we then go through a different phase. And it's fun. It's fun. I love it. But, all the fun. But I think that wraps things up pretty nicely. Obviously, we've been talking about loads of different scope of sort of bodybuilding and lifestyle and shoot preps and not being on a prep and bodybuilding as well. And I think it's important to know those extremes hugely, because people don't realize that you don't always have to be an extreme of something. You can just do things and trickle along and do it steadily rather than going to sort of the craziness of it as well.
And also just like reminding yourself that aesthetically that's not the goal. Like it is one of the goals, but it shouldn't be the whole goal.
And it can always change. And I think, again, that's where with bodybuilding, you know, you are judged on how you look, and that is that. And obviously with lifestyle, it's not always the case.
No, lifestyle is about, you know, building healthy habits and carrying them through. Yeah, absolutely. And it's habits for life, which I think 100%. Is the main thing to remember. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And we hope you enjoyed. And yeah, stay tuned for what else is in store. A big thank you for joining me on my channel and tuning in. Find me on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, Amazon and YouTube, A Diary to Empower. Follow me on Instagram, m_power.fitness, and TikTok, m.ibert. See you on the next episode.